Hi, I'm Joseph Purcell, and today I will be discussing the play Machinal, written by Sophie Treadwell in 1928. Funnily enough, I actually watched the original UNT play live. I watched that with my dad about a year ago, and I saw it live, and I personally thought it was really good. As someone who wants to get into the industry of designing sets and building sets and making props and all that neat behind the scenes stuff, I thought the set was actually very nicely designed. I loved all the little panels that could be popped out or like were on hinges, like the ones at the top that you could unhinge to open or close them. That was really nice. I liked that very transformative element of it. I really loved the projections onto it. That was really nice. Like, oh, now it's a cafe. Now it's Helen's mom's house. Now it's George's house and Helen's house as well. Now it's the apartment of the guy that Helen is cheating on George with. I really loved how seamlessly and transformative it could be, especially towards the end when it became an electric chair. That was amazing. I really did love the set design in that. And the actors were particularly good. I really liked the actor who played George. I thought he was very nice at his job as being a sort of cold, calculating businessman who didn't actually care about anybody, but was rather only caring about fulfilling societal expectations. But I'll get to that in a little bit. Firstly, let's talk about the characters. First of all, we have the main character, Helen. She's a young woman. She's the protagonist of the play, and you really get a feel for her character of that she's a soft person in a hard world. What I mean by that is she actually feels like a real human being in a world of like clockwork people. You feel that she's a real person in a world full of machines that are keeping to some kind of schedule or something like that. And she isn't necessarily a rebel, but she's just someone trying to catch her own breath in a world that constantly demands stuff from her on a schedule and expects her to keep up regardless of that, regardless of her problems. Then you have her husband, George H. Jones. And to me, he's the most interesting part of the play because to me, he isn't a villain in the normal sense that we see villains like him. He's successful, he's a provider, and he thinks he's a great guy, and so do a lot of the people around him. But he's the human embodiment of a filing cabinet. Every time he touches Helen, she physically recoils. You don't get any feeling of love or affection from either Helen or George, because George only married Helen, really, to fulfill a societal expectation of him. Like, oh, hey, I'm a successful businessman. I have a wife. I'm very good at my job. I'm a titan of industry. Things like that. It's not necessarily a marriage out of love, but just to keep up appearances and to stick to expectations of that time, of the 30s and 20s, and things like that. And then you can't forget the mother. She's too busy being caught in her own little mechanical loop. She's obsessed with things like food, garbage, and debt. She doesn't even really bother to listen to Helen's distress all that much because she's too busy performing her own role in the machine that is life in this time period, the late 20s and 1930s. Nobody does anything because they want to or just because. It's either to get something because it's their job, or just to fill out a societal expectation that's been placed on them in this time period and by general society at that time. Again, it's the thing of everybody feels like a little clockwork person, little figures in a cuckoo clock. Nobody acts truly human as we know that people actually act. They all act like cogs in a vastly big machine. Back when I watched the live production of Machinal back in the UNT theater about a year ago, and the idea that stuck in my head when I rewatched it on YouTube was, is there an outside really? Helen tries to find freedom in a brief, messy affair with another man, but then that all eventually crumbles around her and leads her back to the cold, mechanical reality of the law. It really makes you wonder if there is any space left in modern day for a person to just be, to just exist, without having to produce something or belong to someone, to not have to dedicate their entire life to appealing to a schedule or to a routine or a job or fulfilling their assigned role in greater society. In terms of modern application, even though this play was written 100 years ago, almost 100 years ago, I feel like it could have been written today. And I also feel like it connects to people in the modern day, 100 years after it was written. Because when you really think about it, we've traded things like adding machines and stuff like that for computers and smartphones and hustle culture and algorithms and things like that. We're all a little Helen, kind of. We're sitting on our cubicles, we're staring at our screens, feeling the same pressure to align our heartbeat to a digital clock, to always remain on schedule, to have a constant crunch time, and to always feed the system, to always do what you are meant to do and what society wants you to do, not what you personally want to do. What can you offer to society? What can you offer to the greater machine as the cog that you are? Machinal plays a massive part in theater history because it gives a voice to that specific modern dread. It's joyful and it's wonderful in its creativity, but it gives us that deep, disturbing feeling in its truth. And I feel like if you're looking for a play that explains why you feel so tired and why you feel so drained and burnt out after a long week, and why you feel like there are times in society and in your work and in your job and in your life where you feel like a machine and things like that. If you want a play that will explain to you why you feel like that sometimes, I think this is a really good play to explain stuff like that. Before this video ends, I guess I would like to add a funny little antidote or a funny little story that I have with this play. Back when I watched it with my father and the beginning was playing and everybody was, pretending to be like robots or like, again, cuckoo clock figures, I thought that was really neat. I mean, me personally, I felt like it went on for a little too long, but I still think it got the message across. And funny enough, when I originally watched it, I went like, "Oh, that's cool," and then it went on for a minute longer than I personally would have had it gone. And I remember just feeling pretty awkward that I dragged my dad out to watch this with me so that he could also take notes. Well, I also took notes while I was watching it. And I remember thinking, "Oh my God, is the entire play gonna be like this? Like, oh God." And no offense to the actors. I mean, they did a pretty good job. It's just that sequence went on for a little too long. A little longer than I personally would have liked. And funnily enough, me and my dad kind of joked about after we watched the play and we went to go get lunch. It's like, oh, they're like glitching out like, Chuck E. Cheese, like Showbiz Pizza animatronics, and I thought that was kind of funny. Again, no disrespect to the actors or the original screenplay writer for that adaptation of Machinal. I just thought that was kind of maybe a funny little story that I would like to share, and also just kind of funny little interaction between me and my dad when we were both watching this play live about a year ago. So that is my review of Machinal. So thank you, and thank you for watching.